Hi everyone, today is going to be our first class concentrating on our final chapter of this semester, collective behavior and social movements. So today we're going to take some time to conceptualize each, looking at some similarities and differences between the concepts, and then we're going to get into different elements going on within each. So overall, we can say that both collective behavior and social movements fit under a larger umbrella of what we call collective action. And so collective action basically captures any group-based behavior that is there for a response to what's perceived to be what is defined by individuals as problematic conditions. So again, kind of focus on the meanings involved in this, how people will define a specific situation as being problematic. But again, recognizing that not all people may share that same definition of a problematic situation. Thus, not everybody may agree with or may participate in the collective action. So within this collective action, we can distinguish collective behavior in social movements. So basically, how we distinguish the two is based upon the idea of organization and formalization. And so with the collective behavior, basically we say it's relatively unplanned, spontaneous group activity in a response to a situation that again is defined by people as unjust. And then we see social movements in comparison as being more formalized. There's organization, there are resources being allocated, distributed, and used to keep the organization going as a whole. So that's how we kind of separate the two. One is planned out, one is organized, and the other one's, relatively speaking, unplanned and spontaneous. So the collective behavior represents the spontaneous behavior, and then the social movements represents the organized behavior, but both are in response to what people define as a problematic situation, a situation that perhaps is seen as unjust. And so we can say that although we can distinguish the two concepts from one another, we can recognize some similarities, perhaps overlap as well. The similarities being people are defining something as being unjust, as problematic, and based upon that definition of the situation, and they are motivated to act, whether it be act in that untimely, spontaneous way, or to act more in that organized, deliberate manner. And we can say within kind of the collective behavior, outside of it can grow a larger social movement. So there may be some type of spark that generates the collective behavior, very spontaneous, unplanned activity. But over time, it becomes more formalized. You kind of take the shared definition of the situation that promoted and motivated the collective behavior, and you use that definition to become more organized, more formalized. And with that, you take it into more of that social movement territory. We can also say that sometimes the spontaneous behavior that we call collective behavior acts kind of within, or at least maybe touches on definitions of social movements. So just thinking about the recent event around here, a police officer had to shoot, and unfortunately he killed an individual that was coming at him with a knife. And so here, after this situation, there are a lot of people upset. A lot of people kind of got together in that very unplanned, spontaneous manner that would fit the definition of collective behavior. But a lot of this kind of collective behavior was pulling on meanings connected to the Black Lives Matters movement. And so we kind of see that going on. Sometimes it's spontaneous action responding to a situation, but you can draw upon meanings attached to various social movements. And so specifically getting into the collective behavior, when people first started to study this, they looked at groups that's kind of sharing a mind, what Derek Klein often refers to as a collective consciousness, this collective mindset that everybody kind of shares. And it's almost kind of a zombie-like behavior. that everybody just kind of acts in the same way because they kind of share this collective mind. And this kind of group mindset really kind of says that there's not a lot of real thinking going on. Everybody's just kind of following the leader like robots, and that was supported for a decent period of time. But then people start to challenge that because when you're looking at things from kind of afar, it does look like kind of crowds act in these very kind of like-minded manners. But if you actually start to talk to people, although they may be kind of together in their collective behavior, they may have different motivations for doing it. So you see the switch from a group mindset, a collective mindset, to more group mindsets, plural, collective mindsets, plural. And here you kind of get the idea of these emergent norms kind of drive the situation rather than a group mind. And again, the emergent norms basically are kind of discussed and negotiated, that people kind of within the collective setting start to follow the norms, but their motivation for kind of being there may differ from one person to another. So although they may share kind of norms that guide a situation, not everybody's thinking alike. They may be kind of following the norms, but their motivation to follow the norms that have emerged within the situation can differ from one person to another. People may just be there out of intellectual curiosity. People may be there because they really feel strong about an issue. People may be there simply to kind of meet others. So again, not everybody is the same, like it was kind of framed with the collective kind of group mindset. Here, people have their own minds and motivations for being there, but you can still kind of act collectively because through kind of negotiations, people will kind of follow the same norms. So when looking at the kind of elements behind behavior, you can start to look at different forms of collective behavior, and these forms, riots and panic specifically, basically look at how the expressions, the behavior itself, often will challenge social norms. So anything that kind of deviates from social norms, including violence and conflict, we kind of categorize as a riot. And then with panics, it's more about how the situation becomes worse based upon the collective behavior. So, panic is a good label for this because, when you hear somebody say, don't panic, you basically are saying calm down because you're simply going to make the situation worse by going at it, how you're going at it. So sometimes the collective behavior, a collective response in a kind of a spontaneous manner can be more harmful than good. But nevertheless, that happens, and we label those situations panics when it increases the danger rather than kind of minimizes it, or at least kind of keeps it the same. And then again, the riot basically is defined as these expressions, the actions that kind of deviate from expected behaviors. And rumors kind of fit in all this because kind of behind the behavior, people often will use stuff that's not necessarily false or true. You really don't know because simply it's kind of in that rumor area of not being proved false as well. And so kind of with these rumors, people will use them, the meanings kind of within the rumors to guide their behaviors, to guide kind of the norms that are built within the collective behavior itself. So often rumors are important when it comes to collective behavior because, again, the spontaneous nature of it, you don't have a lot of known information, kind of what is right, what is wrong. So you kind of rely on information that's out there, but not necessarily true or false information. But nevertheless, you kind of use the meanings within this information to guide your actions, to guide your thoughts, kind of what to do, what not to do in a given situation, why we're doing it, or perhaps why we're not doing it. So now breaking down social movements, we can look at kind of different parts connected to the movement as a whole, why social movement emerges, how people are recruited into movements, and the role of ideology when it comes to the movement beginning and sustaining itself over time. So basically you can say that more or less the emergence of social movements rely on some type of recognition of false inequalities, an inequality that's again seen as unjust, something that it's there and exists, but it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't exist. And so these recognitions of false inequalities connected to, somebody's sex and being a woman or a man, somebody's race, somebody's geography, and whatever the case may be, you kind of recognize these inequalities that exist between classes, sexes, places, races, and you say these inequalities are not just, they're false. And thus, we're going to kind of use these as our motivating factors to kind of emerge as a formalized, organized, more long-term social movement. And with this emergence, you need resources. You need, money. You need time. You need people, and kind of all these different types of resources come together to create the movement and provide that formalization, provide that order. Who's doing what, when they're doing it. What are we doing? How are we going to do it? All these things don't come out of thin air. You need resources, again, the time, the money, the people to put in the work to create the formal organization that's needed to create and maintain a social movement. And finally, you do need that organization. You start to have to get people kind of in that kind of vertical hierarchy where you have people who kind of take the lead, people more in the middle, people at the bottom doing a lot of the dirty work. And if everybody's kind of doing their roles, responsibilities correctly, that formal organization emerges and it allows the emergence of the social movement to occur as a whole. So kind of connected to the emergence is the recruitment strategies. So basically you have different appeals to people, and it can be, based upon shared ways of thinking. So kind of cognitive appeals, but also you want to establish kind of the emotional likeness as well. So you want to talk to people and make sense, but also you want to appeal to people emotionally. So when you start to appeal successfully, people kind of start to think, like they need to think to be involved. Becoming a part of a social movement takes time and energy. So you need to kind of be in that right frame of mind to contribute your time, to contribute your energy to a movement. But also you need to establish those emotional bonds that you feel connected, that not only do you agree with the message, the mission of a movement, but also you are motivated enough, emotionally speaking, to actually go out and support it, whether it be kind of, in the background with the organization aspects, or going out there and supporting it in terms of getting your feet on the ground, actually during different marches and protest and the like. So ideology plays a big role. Ideology simply represents kind of a standardized way of thinking. And again, it kind of ties into the kind of emergent norms that people kind of start to understand kind of why we're here, what we're actually doing, and why we're doing it. And when you start to, have this kind of group ideology, it brings people together. You start to create the cognitive likeness among participants, the emotional likeness among participants. And when you start to get that with the shared ideology, you start to get that commitment to the movement, not for a short-term period, but for a long-term period. And people start to identify with the movement. You see yourself as a participant of the movement. You see yourself as part of the movement. And other people will start to define you as well. So you get kind of both elements. Socially, people see you connected to the movement strongly. Personally, you connect yourself to the movement strongly as well. So again, this relates to kind of the emergence of the movement to begin with. You need to kind of have that ideology, or at least kind of a rough draft, we could say, of the ideology to bring people together, to get them on the same page. Then also you can use the ideology as part of your, appeals to potential recruits to bring them on board, to get them on the same page in terms of ways of thinking and also ways of feeling. So that's what we're going to do today. It's kind of a short introduction to what we mean when we say collective behavior, social movements, and what kind of comprises in various ways each of the two concepts. And when we get back to the end of the chapter in our next class, we'll be looking at more how movements operate. What are different meanings, different frames that the social movements use to actually do the moving parts, the actual behaviors, and to sustain themselves over time.